I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Patrick Reveron. He is the founder of the Single Company. He's a Navy veteran. And Patrick, you've been taking what I think is a pretty unique approach to investigating the government ties of Jeffrey Epstein and Robert Maxwell through government contracts, something you are somewhat of a specialist in. Welcome back to the show, Patrick. How are you?
Good, Jason. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. Yeah, just been working on part three, part four, five, six, so on. Like I said, the last two episodes, the more I dig into this, the larger this proverbial web is getting spun. But just finished part three. Part four will be up tomorrow, and then we'll have five and six in the coming weeks. So.
Great. Well, we'll be talking about that today. It's also important that we let everybody know that you've just launched a Substack page. So we're going to do a bit of a sponsor exclusive after this intro here. People will be able to join us on substack.com/single company, and that's spelled with an X. You're going to be posting all of your content. I presume all this research and everything will be up on this brand new Substack page, along with the sponsor exclusive videos that we do here. So thanks for joining me for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jason. You're the reason I launched it. So it took me a while to pull the trigger. So I appreciate you putting the boot in my ass, so to speak. So thank you.
Navy style. Got to be
Yeah.
one of those scuba flippers. But Patrick, so tell us what you've discovered this week, because you were talking last week. I had heard about Sandia Laboratories, but really I don't know too much about it. It's in New Mexico. One of the things that fascinated me was this logo that they have. It's kind of like, I don't know, what is this? Maybe a Thunderbird or something. What's going on with Sandia Laboratories?
So just a little bit of background. So Sandia National Laboratories, it is a government-run facility. So it's ran by the Department of Energy. You have all sorts of CIA, NSA, DIA, DoD, NASA contracts and interests going in and out of there for the last 70 years. And they just celebrated their 75th anniversary. Um, so Sandia National Laboratories is very important because they work with MIT, they work with Harvard, all of these, universities that Jeffrey Epstein was affiliated with. Um, their research interests range all the way from borderline occult science, getting
Whoa,
into very esoteric,
really?
research. Yeah, yeah. Project Stargate, all these different, psychological projects that they engage in, as well as aerospace and neuroscience, all these different things. They've been on the forefront of quantum computing and AI since about 2006 is when they first published a white paper about it.
Wow. You
Yeah.
see, that's super interesting because, we'll get into this more in the sponsor exclusive part of the show. But I mean, again, you and I are just getting to know each other, Patrick, and my research style is a little bit unconventional. But when I say that I'm intrigued by this logo, I don't think I really had any idea that they were doing. I mean, what you're talking about almost borders on supernatural, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty crazy some of the things that they published. And, if you look at where they are in New Mexico, they're only about 15 minutes from the storied Los Alamos laboratory. You have Bob Lazar, you have J. Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, all of these juggernauts of science and on the fringes of science that, had unfettered research access at these facilities. So, um, it's also worthy to mention that both of those places are only about 25 minutes from Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch, where Virginia Giuffre claimed that Bill Richardson and Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her and assaulted her. And then you also have the account of this woman named Eve, who she claimed to be basically a prisoner of Zorro Ranch. And she said that she would often see UFOs, I refuse to call them UAPs, but she would often see UFOs and Men in Black and all these crazy things. I think she also talked about skinwalkers, and Skinwalker Ranch is not too far from there. So it aligns with the research of these facilities, what Jeffrey Epstein's interests were, and also the historical, scientific context of the region of the American Southwest, whether it's Roswell, the Black Mailbox, any of these storied sites, Area 51, S4, they're all in the same 500-mile radius.
Now, Patrick, you spent a number of years in the Navy. Did you ever see any UFOs? We have a lot of people saying the Navy is like shooting lasers at UFOs and stuff. I mean, that doesn't seem so smart, but anything?
I mean, I have seen the video from Mosul. I did see some FLIR footage and a couple of ops intel briefs of what they would call anomalous phenomena. Um, I personally only saw it was in the East China Sea. I was on a carrier deployment, and it was they wrote off as bioluminescent algae. Um, but I don't think that bioluminescent algae can, pop out of the water with about 50 different witnesses and then disappear into the sky in the dead of
What?
night. Yeah.
So you saw that. So wait a minute. So you're on an aircraft carrier in the South
Yeah,
China Sea, and some bioluminescent, something glowing comes out of the ocean and takes off into the sky.
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
But and other than
Uh,
a missile that's fired from like a submarine or something, that we really don't have any. There's no like boat that turns into a helicopter or something like that, right? There's only missiles fire, and they kind of like pop out like a cork and then shoot a rocket. It's sort of obvious what it's doing, right?
Yeah, and if we're doing anything, surface to air, as far as assaults, that's going to be strictly for a destroyer, not an aircraft carrier. I mean, the aircraft carrier, has a few defenses. You have the LRAD, which is a sound, an acoustic sound weapon. You also have Class B lasers. You also have the CWIS mount. But mostly, an aircraft carrier's defense capabilities are really all tied up in, I guess you would say, thwarting, like whether it's a Faraday cage or, setting material condition River City. Um, but really, it's
What
the
does that
aircraft.
mean? Setting material condition River City.
So River City is essentially when a U.S. Navy ship goes dark. So they turn on what's called degaussing, and it basically just activates this giant Faraday cage in the vessel. It's like a stealth mode, you could call it. So there's no incoming or outgoing signals. Um, the only thing that's online is radar, and that's really it. But um, yeah, that's some classified stuff, so I don't want
Yeah.
the Navy to send me a letter. But
Definitely
um,
don't get into trouble. We don't want you. Got to get Hillary Clinton indicted, not you. Wow. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to discuss. But so back to Sandia Labs. Now, you mentioned Enrique Fermi. A long time ago, I did some research with a guy named Quinn Michaels, who a little bit maybe out of his mind, but I think sometimes that's quite close to genius. And we actually, well, I went. He was on video with me, but I went to Fermi Labs in
mhm.
Chicago, and actually, first thing we did was we went to some other lab, Sanford Lab, which was in like South Dakota or something like that, and they had some kind of not neurons, but like muons or shooting some kind of particle through the crust of the earth. And
Mm.
I might be saying this wrong. I'm not a scientist, but in other words, they were shooting something from South Dakota through the earth that was going to Fermi Lab in Chicago, where they were receiving it. and it was, I don't know, somehow some way to make a communications network. But the thing that
Hmm.
I wanted to mention that sort of goes toward the supernatural is that Enrico Fermi said that he wanted to create the particle accelerator in order to open a portal. This is him saying this, not me. He wanted to open a portal into another dimension to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if they ever did that, but I mean, you're saying this is the kind of research they're doing over there, right?
Yeah, precisely. And it's all, Project Stargate stuff, Star Wars, all of these all these projects that people perceive as, these black budget or these highly classified projects, remote viewing, which that is completely declassified. You have guys like Joe McGonigal going on these major podcasts, espousing all of the research that he was a part
That
of.
works?
Um, well, I know by his account, he said he had a 20% accuracy,
Oh,
which for a remote viewer, is like, shooting 53 pointers, going 50 for 50 from the 3-point line in basketball. So,
huh.
um, yeah, it's a lot of weird stuff. Like, one of the things I uncovered today, which will be in parts 4 and 5, were all of these oil companies that went to this conference at Sandia National Laboratories in conjunction with Los Alamos and also the New Mexico Institute of Mining. And it was all these oil companies, Shell, Gulf Oil, Sinclair, ExxonMobil. Um, but there was also this company, it was El Zorro. I I have the data compiled here, but um, basically it was about penetrating and picking areas in New Mexico that are rich with rare earth minerals such as uranium, lithium, iridium, tritium, um, and where they should develop that land, which was very strange to me because it had nothing to do with oil, but you had all of these, the biggest players
But
in oil.
energy, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, energy, yeah.
And Sandia
Um,
Labs, it also gets involved with the Department of Energy, which is doing not just electricity and stuff like that, but nuclear power, nuclear missiles. It really gets into a lot of crazy stuff. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you know Austin Forbes, obviously, right?
yeah,
Is that his
yeah.
name, Ashton Forbes? I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong.
Ashton
Yeah,
Forbes, yeah.
he's doing all that research into the disappearance of the Malaysia Airlines flight, and he's talking about 0 point energy. I saw he had a tweet earlier today where he's talking about this, and I've heard about this before, some sort of conference about gravity that Jeffrey Epstein had, and this
Mhm.
VI Foundation.
Yeah. And that's some crazy stuff too, is because, Jeffrey Epstein was throwing $20 million a year at various research scientists, some of whom worked at Los Alamos. None of them can be traced back to Sandia National Laboratories as of yet. So I've been, rifling through documents, whether open source or FOIA. Um, and it's really hard to find one of the scientists that he had on his his little freelance science recreational science team that he was spending $20 million a year on working at Sandia. But a lot of these guys came from Los Alamos and MIT and worked with Sandia or worked with Los Alamos, or all these different high level research institutes. You have Oak Ridge in Tennessee. Um, so and he was well purported to, you know, be talking about AI and looking for funding for AI as early as 2006, quantum computing, uh, the occult, esoteric, fringe sciences, UFOs, other dimensions, quantum mechanics, all of these different things, which is strange for a high school dropout, ex math teacher become billionaire financier who ends up on an episode of VH1. Uh,
What?
yeah, you haven't seen that. Oh,
What
I
was the
gotta.
VH1 episode? I don't know about
So,
that.
so VH1 they pulled it, but the parent company Viacom, which owns Paramount, CBS, MTV, VH1, BET, they're pretty much at the forefront of predictive programming and psychological warfare and propaganda. But VH1 came out with an episode showcasing Jeffrey Epstein. Basically, it was their version of Robin Leach's, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Um, and, they said he has a property in New Mexico. He has this $70 million penthouse in New York. He has this ranch in New Mexico. How does he do it? Yep, the fabulous life of Wall Street billionaires. Yep, there it
It
is.
won't click. It won't go there.
Yeah. Yeah, they tried to wipe it from the earth. So
Wow.
yeah.
Cringeworthy. There was
Yeah.
also a. We looked at it a little bit, I think, last week, didn't we? The Robin Leach episode where they showed
Yeah.
Adnan
Yeah.
Khashoggi's jet and everything. Well, we don't need to
Yeah.
show ads for Rupert Murdoch, but it is interesting how it's always, Maxwell, Murdoch, all these guys, very interested in Jeffrey
Hmm.
Epstein. I'll tell you what, Patrick, I find a lot of the time with these limited hangout type things, they want to get right up to the story so that they're the ones controlling it. But
Hmm.
anyway, let me not step on what you're saying. I do want to talk to you a little bit about this Thunderbird logo because it reminds me. I mean, I'm sure you weren't watching. You were in the Navy. You were over there on aircraft carriers looking at UFOs when I was working with David Hawkins. But this Thunderbird, I think it has some significance. And I just thought that from looking at it. Now, everything you're telling me about the crazy research that they're doing only makes me think it more.
Yeah, and I think that it's a direct almost a mockery, to people, kind of hidden in plain sight of I think it could be in reference to Quetzalcoatl, the ancient Aztec god. He was represented by a thunderbird. It also has to do with, maybe bringing back extinct species and being on the fringe of that realm of science. The thunderbird was a real creature. Project Stargate, that had to do with resurrecting dire wolves and all these crazy, extinct cryptids that now they're going on Joe Rogan and being very open about.
Wow.
And it's a real company now, resurrecting extinct animals. So I think that's where the
What
um
could go wrong?
where
These people obviously never saw Jurassic Park.
yeah. Also, I mean the region too. Like obviously the American Southwest, a lot of significance with Native American and Navajo imagery. So I think that's also where that Thunderbird logo comes in.
Well,
Um,
let me
it,
share this with you for a second because
oh, of course.
we're going in the same direction. So this is a video. David Hawkins unfortunately died in 2023, and this was sort of a farewell video that I made to him. And he would frequently talk about this incident where he was British living in Canada, British Columbia to be exact, and he used to talk about this RCMP and FBI raid on a company called StarNet Communications, whose office was in this building.
Hmm.
And it had this logo painted on there with the Thunderbird and this whole kind of, there is a big Native American population there in British Columbia, and particularly in this downtown area in Vancouver. It's like incredibly impoverished. There's a lot of homelessness and crime and drug use on the street. And I went there to visit David, and we went to this building and just sort of walked around the neighborhood talking to people. And there was this was pretty funny because he had a wireless mic on and he was just walking around. So he was talking to people who didn't necessarily see that they were on camera. Not that we were trying to deceive anybody or anything like that, but he had this conversation with a guy who may have been homeless. And Hawkins asked him, what is that? And the guy just said right away, it's a warning. Now, obviously, he could be some homeless, drug addicted lunatic on the street, but I tell you, Patrick, the way the guy said it, how he said it right away, I really got the sense that he knew that that's what it
Mm,
was, the imagery and whatever. And the fact
yeah.
that that Thunderbird is a warning, he didn't go any further than that, but it intrigues me because this Starnet Communications thing, what they were doing in there was, and it was 1999, so it was before you had live streaming on YouTube and
Mhm.
everything that we're using now. It was before people could go to substack.com/ at single company and watch our sponsor exclusive segment that's coming up next. It was kind of like super advanced to have live streaming video, and this place was live streaming all kinds of weird pornography and
Mm.
gambling, and it got raided, and all kinds of crazy criminal stuff was going on there. And it kind of goes toward the Jeffrey Epstein, kidnapping people and raping them or whatever the hell Epstein was
Yeah.
doing. It's just, I don't know. It seems like there's connections here that are just symbolic and weird.
Well, it's actually, I don't know why I didn't mention this, but the infamous Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. It's about an hour and a half from Area 51. It's about an hour and a half from Sandia and Los Alamos and Zorro Ranch. Chaco Canyon was a focal point of Project Stargate because it's been there. There's thousands of cases of people saying that it is indeed this portal to another dimension.
Whoa.
The Navajo actually used to say that, there would be creatures in the sky that would watch over it. And I'm pretty sure, including a thunderbird. Um,
Wow.
so, um, New Mexico seems to be a very, I mean, it's a beautiful state. If people haven't been there, it does sometimes look like another world when you're driving through the mesas on Highway 10 and the sky is pink and purple and the canyons are red. It's a beautiful state, but um, obviously, in its uniqueness, nefarious actors are going to take advantage of that. And I think that's exactly why, Jeffrey Epstein, um, we don't know if he was at this conference for the Department of Energy with Los Alamos in 2005 and then subsequently 2007 with all the oil companies. Um, but him putting Zorro Ranch there in proximity to Los Alamos, in proximity to Sandia, you have the Department of Energy that basically runs Sandia. And if we're talking about communications companies, you had one of the largest government contracts of all time that started in 1978, and that was awarded to AT&T, the telecommunications conglomerate. Um, that contract was for $5 billion to maintain operational faculties of Sandia National Laboratories. Now, that contract started in 1978 and ended in 1993. And where it gets weird is Bill Richardson, the subsequent head of the Department of Energy, governor of New Mexico, representative of New Mexico, he moved to the state in 1978 from Nevada, goes to Albuquerque, goes to Santa Fe, runs for office, and then as congressman in 1986, he's basically in charge of this entire project that's going on in Sandia. Then in 1993, he gets appointed to be the head of the Department of Energy by Bill Clinton. Um, and his implications with Jeffrey Epstein go very,
Right.
very deep.
Hmm.
With Virginia Giuffre's accounts, with that woman Eve and her accounts. Um, and then he gets governor of New Mexico until 2000, I believe.
Then
Um,
he died in 2023. Well, Patrick, what we're going to
yeah.
do now is we're going to switch over to the sponsor exclusive segment. We'll get into some of your new research that you had shared with me. People are going to be able to join us by going to substack.com/ at single company will have a feed on there, and people who are sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth, of course, can also join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, on subscribestar.com, and patreon.com, and people who are subscribed to me on X at JG_CSTT will get that exclusive video right after we're done. Send a message to Elon Musk, tell him to enable subscriber exclusive live streaming on X, but we'll be right back.